Welcome to the Squad Games Podcast. Squad Games Podcast.
Yeah, I had a trivia night on Friday night. That was fun.
Are you good at trivia?
I would think that Rob is great at trivia.
Yeah.
He throws some random Rob facts out there that I fucking enjoy.
I mean, I'm a history teacher, so like that's what trivia is. Like it's all just like trivial information. But yeah, it was a bit annoying because I used to do trivia and it was always on paper. This time it's all on the phone. So like everyone's looking at their phone, so you can't tell if someone's just cheating. And there were some definite ones where like, listen, that there's no way you know that. Like the last question was like, what are the top 10 countries with navies based on number of ships?
Pepsi.
U.S.
Yeah.
UK.
Nope.
Russia.
Yep.
Then UK.
No, you don't have to in order. Just 10. Of them.
Okay. So you said UK is not one of them?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. So Russia, China for sure.
Yeah.
10. Okay. Hold on. Let me think.
I'm sad Pepsi isn't it anymore.
No. Well, they have to count as naval vessels.
Because for a while they had it when
China made a bunch of their fishing boats become Navy vessels, which probably bumped them up.
That's cheating?
They're probably number 2. I mean, it is cheating, but hey, I'm not here to criticize the Chinese government. Okay, let's see here. Who's third? Fourth, maybe would be won't be Japan. I'm thinking France.
Nope.
Goodness gracious. Yeah, I have no idea. How did this kid know this things?
They're like Sweden, Indonesia, Thailand.
He knew all of these?
Yeah, someone got 10 out of 10. I was like, no, this is no. But yeah, they
cheated.
Definitely cheated. That's fine. We lost. It's fine. I'm not bitter.
Indonesia and Thailand.
Also,
what?
Sri Lanka.
Okay,
man, I forget that's
Sri Lanka.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't buy that.
Young brains. My brain is now a smooth brain. So. Oh, that's impressive. So what other trivia do you have, Rob? Is there anything else that you could
I mean, so fun fact, the word trivia itself is trivia. It means 3 ways. When the Romans were building their roads, anytime the road split in like a fork in the road, they put a pillar down for how many miles it was away from Rome, the year that it was made, who was emperor at the time. So that's trivial information. Just useless kind of like, and it comes from 3 ways or trivia, which is Latin. So that's my
nerd.
my most obscure trivia is the root of trivia.
love it?
Yeah.
These things make me happy. Makes my smooth brain very happy. I just got an additional wrinkle. So.
Oh, there we go.
Well, good thing we're talking trivia right now, because today we're going to be talking about some very specific things that matter in Kill Team, right, Dakotah?
We are. It's pretty exciting. We don't typically do podcasts in person anymore, but today we're all sitting around a table and we're all looking at each other, which is kind
of awkward a little bit.
Yeah, which is another trivial information.
There we go. Hey.
I'm learning.
I mean, what do you usually do when we're not together? What are you staring at?
A computer screen.
Yeah, but like, what are you doing on the computer screen?
Looking at my hands.
On your computer screen?
I don't know what to do with my hands. I just
where do I put my feet?
fiddling with a model.
Yeah, I do that.
That's what Emmanuel always
I
does.
do my hair.
Usually I have like notes up or something like that on the computer screen or something like that. And sometimes we have cameras on, but sometimes Discord doesn't like to play nice. So sometimes that doesn't happen. But today we're going to talk a little bit about our most recent tournament that we had, the Du Bois Bash. It was a fun 18 person tournament. And looking forward to our next one being bigger. Our first one is always a little bit smaller, but then we're going to talk a little bit about what was our second thing that we're going to talk about?
I don't know. You made it up. I'm just ready.
The
to
FAQs.
Okay, so that's number 3.
That's number 3.
So we're going to talk about FAQs today, and we're also going to talk about our predictions on on the data slate coming up. So should be a lot of fun. This is what happens when you don't have your notes in front of you. You just like forget
just
really
looking at our hands.
Really key informational points, right?
Like literally people wouldn't even know.
The second thing was the reason why Rob is here in the first place.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The narrative. So let me grab that real quick. Never mind. It's also not where I thought it was.
Nice. And this is all happening today.
Yes.
What? You said what?
This is all happening today.
It is happening in real time.
So Squad Games Podcast.
So, but before we get to that, we want to change up the flow of the podcast a little bit. Giacomo, do you want to give a shout out to our sponsors currently?
Absolutely. If you're looking to buy miniatures, whether new or secondhand, feel free to use our affiliate link through Frontline Gaming. You know, they have all sorts of stuff, whether you're getting miniatures from any kind of line of game or whether you're buying events to one of their bigger events out, whether I think the most recent one was the Colorado one at the time of this recording. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking to get tickets through there, you can use our link. Gives us a little bit of a kickback, which we always appreciate.
BAO is next.
BAO is next. So if you're going to go to BAO, you're playing Warhammer 40K or one of the other events they're doing there, feel free to get some tickets in the link below.
But there's something important about BAO. BAO is not happening for Kill Team at BAO. Instead, we are running the Bay Area Championship at Mad Alpaca Games, which is affiliated with FLG. But currently this year, they have less space than they typically do. So Kill Team is being moved to a different location, which we are heading and we are running. Currently, we're in talks with FLG to see if they want to provide anything for them. But currently, we haven't landed on anything. So currently, it is a squad games tournament that we are running at Mad Alpaca Games. I think there was some miscommunication and they posted some ticket sales for BAO earlier, but those have been taken down, and you can find the tickets for the Bay Area Championship on lustersworkshop.com. And hopefully Frontline Gaming will be posting that same link and the artwork that we had Sheldon Steer make for the event on the Frontline Gaming website, so that people that are looking there can be transferred to our website, so we can move on from there. So that is going to be one of our other upcoming big episodes. But one of the other ones that I want to talk about, which is coming up first on April 13th, is the Pacific Skirmish Open. That is happening at Squad Marks HQ down in Orange County, which is going to be the first time we've ever gone to Squad Marks. They have about 60 Kill Team players can attend. That should be a lot of fun. And I really wanted the naming process of that. I sat there for 2 hours and I wrote down a bunch of words that I liked, and Pacific and Skirmish were the two highest ones. So I just mashed them together, and that's what it's called now.
It sounds like an AI that right there.
It does. It does. I was using my AI brain, but no, that was for realsies. It looks like it should be a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of people from San Diego, from LA, and a couple from the Bay Area. So if you're looking to come in, it should be a relatively large tournament. Also, all of the artwork this year was done by Kill Team Stream for our tournaments. I think the only thing that I changed was the All Valley. The All Valley is happening again this year. That's going to be our biggest event, looking to have over 80 players. Maximum of 102. We rented out a venue, so it's going to be a lot of fun this year. If you guys can make it, I thoroughly hope you can. So I think that's enough with our self promotion.
So on to main topics.
On to the main topic.
Yeah.
So the first thing, I've kept Giacomo and Rob in the dark for the most part. So Giacomo streamed the event yesterday. You guys can find that on our Twitch. More self-promotion. But in actuality, we ran our first event at Loaded Dice, which is a local store. We had it in the stream room upstairs. It was a big blast. Had a lot of fun. But the main thing I wanted to bring up was that there is a rules kerfuffle during the time. And I wanted to bring it up specifically because of like how TOs should handle things like this, because I think that it was handled well. And whether or not you out there know the actual rules interaction, you guys could be screaming at the at the podcast as you're listening. But it had to do with Star Striders Undaunted Explorers. And so from anything that I learned, it only affected one dice, right? And I think that it was interesting because when I read the rules, which I'll pass it off to Rob so Rob can read them aloud, the rules don't really say that on the most recent FAQ. And Rob, do you want to read Undaunted Explorers here for the podcast? And as this is going to be the first time Giacomo and Rob have been introduced to this.
Yeah. So the Undaunted Explorers, the first time attack dice are resolved against it instead of each time it fights in combat or a shooting attack is made against it. And then damage is halved to a minimum of 2 rounding up.
Mm-hmm. So reading that, how do you think that rule is interacted when you're getting shot at? because it's a CP strat.
Okay, so it's a tactical ploy, not a strategic ploy.
It is a strategic ploy.
Strategic ploy. So it's team wide. The first time an attack dice. So first time attack dice. So, yeah, reading it now, it looks like first time attack dice. So I would say all the dice. And that would be not per activation. So like, if I'm shooting at a Electromeister or something like that, the first time I shoot it, all of the dice would be halved. And then if a later activation, I shoot it again, that wouldn't apply. That'd be my first take on it.
Mm-hmm. Or fighting. Because it says specifically shooting or fighting. G, do you want to read it and see what you think?
Yeah, let me look at this one more time.
I already have a question in my head, but I don't know if I
can
look at it again.
Shoot for it. Say it.
Yeah, so is it attack and, or does it attack or? So if I shot and then fight,
Giacomo
and
looks
then
confused as shit.
Yeah.
So go ahead and pull up Wahapedia.
Yeah.
Because Wahapedia is supposed to be up to date, and it says something just different, which is weird.
Yeah.
Especially because Wahapedia is generally pretty right. And this is where we start to see the seed of the information. So the player in question was using this rule exactly how you said it.
Right.
I read it and I was like, oh, I thought it was only one dice. That's weird. Can I see it? I read the rule in his first game and I was like, yeah, that's what it says. Right. That's how I interpreted it.
Yeah.
As well.
So let me read it right now.
From the FAQ.
So
Waha says something different.
Yeah. Until the end of the turning point, the first time a friendly use Star Strider operative that is within 2 of an objective marker or within 6 of your opponent's drop zone fights in combat, or an shooting attack is made against it, and the resolve successful hit steps of that combat or shooting attack, you can have the damage inflicted to a minimum of 2. So at the beginning it says the first time.
But now read the rest. What does it say at the end?
From one of your opponent's successful hits. So yeah, that's not on the FAQ.
It's not, right?
Yeah.
And that is where and so then we pulled up the annual. The annual also says one of your opponent's successful hits, right? So that is like the question is like, where did it go in the FAQ and why isn't it brought up now? Is it just modifying points of the sentence, and why isn't it saying that? Why doesn't it say replace this sentence with this or replace this with this? It doesn't say that in the FAQ, right? So, it got confusing enough where I had to call a couple people that I trust with the rules, and they didn't even know. So I went upstairs and I was talking to one of the players in the community about it, who brought it up, and they said that there's some specific people in Discord that was saying one thing, and I think that that's important to realize is that when there's a TO there, the TO is going to make the decision. Obviously, bringing up other stuff is still useful, but especially when those people are respected people in the community. But I think where the point is that I'm going to try and bring up with this conversation is that TOs really need to not. So just because somebody says something online, or somebody says something in the room, or somebody says something this way or that way, it's really important for TOs not to be involved in groupthink. Right. So groupthink is when a bunch of people think alike and then they will always think alike or something similar. And it's important as reading rules and interpreting rules that we think for ourselves. So specifically in this, I have like a couple people saying one thing, a couple people and the internet saying another thing. How do we resolve this? Right. So now, no matter what, I'm going to be just siding with one or the other because no one can figure out the actual, like, why is Wahapedia and why does the annual specifically say one thing, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't, the FAQ is just written poorly. Like, we don't know what it's replacing, what's replacing what, or anything like that. And it's very just unclear. So in the end, the conclusion that I came to, along with the person that I was having the rules discussion with, is this sentence: the first time attack dice are resolved against it. Now, that's very important, the way it's worded. And I think that it's really important that we understand as TOs and as players why it is, because then you can better articulate it, right? Earlier in the day, I had to look up the definition of resolved for a different rule. right? Just to make
Right.
sure that it got right. And when a dice is resolved, it is resolved one dice at a time. From shooting and attacking.
Okay,
so
yeah.
this is the first time attack dice are resolved against it. So this is referring to it does happen one time, but it's happening because the definition of resolved in Kill Team is one dice at a time. So Waha kind of dumbs it down and also refers back to how it was originally written in the annual as one dice at a time, but they just neglect to put that in the FAQ.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense then.
So I think that it was really important for me to understand that, to then go to the players, because I also was like, oh yeah, this looks right. Cool. This looks right. Cool. Right. So I brought them outside and we came to a mutual resolution between all three players so that, we could go through that. And ultimately, since one player was playing it wrong, I asked the other player, I was like, what would feel okay to you? And that player said like, hey, let's just end in a tie. And then we'll just like call it from there. Cool. And the other guy agreed to it. So from there, they both felt resolved. I don't really care what anyone else thinks at the tournament. As long as those two players feel resolved, it was good. I went back in there and I said, hey, everyone, this is the reason, because everyone got involved, right? It's a smaller tournament. So everyone was like, oh my gosh, especially when people got loud about the rules, right?
Right.
So now everyone's like emotionally invested other than the stream room.
We're in our own world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like and luckily it was in between rounds, so we were able to figure it out. But in the end, like I was in there, I was able to articulate the reason why it was and the reason why it happened. And I think that everyone now understands resolved. And when you read Kill Team, it's each word has a different, it's almost like an English language within itself.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult, very interesting.
Technical language. Yeah.
But I think the main thing that I'm trying to say to Kill Team organizers, to tournament organizers, judges, is when something is brought up, don't just go with the first thing you hear, right? Maybe if somebody has like a better grasp on the rules, you might be able to ask them and they might like just know innately, right? But like English, like Kill Team is like its own language in itself, right? So maybe if they have a better grasp on the Kill Team language than you do, then cool. But like, as it is, it's better to understand why it is the way it is than just say, this is the rule, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if somebody's like, why, you're just like, hey, this is what it is. Rob, I think you said before we started, there's something specific that you wanted to bring up about LVO, something similar.
Yeah. So we had and it was a great game. I was playing Scouts, and if you remember my prediction before I went to LVO, I wasn't expecting to do well. And I was right.
Well, the team has a 40% win rate currently.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's 9 of my games are part of that at LVO.
Dang.
But no, so it wasn't like determining big stuff, but we had a really good game really against Chaos Legionnaire. And we had a question over how Veterans of the Long War applies to Blast with Splash. And so we had to call over a TO. And the first TO, luckily LVO this year had a couple, was a bit unsure. They called over Dakotah and they made a ruling.
This was Troy, right?
Yeah, it was Troy. He read through it first and he's like, oh yeah, this is kind of tricky. And I had a pretty good like rationale about why I thought my interpretation was correct, and the other guy he had a pretty good rationale as well, which is a great example of like, I mean, they try to do a good job with the rules, and they do a good job with a lot of the rules, and some of the rules are just so complicated that you just can't be good with it. But we eventually got it figured out, and I think my perspective from the whole thing was like, whatever the decision is right now, even if I feel like I could like make my case better, that's just what it has to be, because we're in a tournament situation. We have to have someone has to make the decision,
and it has to be in a timely manner.
Yeah, and yeah,
that's the other important part.
We are timed on. So then after the game was over, I went and I talked to a couple other people there that like other TOs and people that TO their own tournaments, but it wasn't with the intent of figuring out like, can I go back and change or affect it? I was more like this. So for me personally, going back to the trivia thing, I just have a very curious mind with stuff. So I was like, well, what if this had happened or this or this? And there's so many other like permutations. So I enjoy the activity of talking to other people and trying to work out like real niche cases. Like, well, what if there was a blast where the damage wasn't done, but the splash did, and then they get to a redo on the damage and all this stuff.
Let's read Veterans of the Long War for everyone. So Veterans of the Long War is a tactical ploy for legionaries. costs 1 CP. Use this tactical ploy during a friendly legionary operative's activation. After it fights in combat or makes a shooting attack, if the target did not lose any wounds as a result of that combat or shooting attack, repeat that combat or shooting attack.
Yeah, so it was with the Balefire Acolyte who did his Fire Blast, which has Blast and Splash. The initial target, I think he just rolled poorly. He got 1 hit, and I was like, I don't want to roll my saves. I just wanted to go through because I don't want him to have a second chance at this. But you have to roll your saves. So I saved it, but then damage was done to a secondary operative with critical damage, so a splash attack went to the initial target. So it didn't apply there. But talking to a bunch of other people, they're like, well, actually, I could see a case. And really, I think the answer to this is it's kind of gray area. You could, I mean, depending on how the words are defined, it could go many different ways. But like, I guess like the big moral. And then there's also the idea of like, if you redo the attack, does it do the blast all over again? Because you get to do the attack on the target. So do you roll just the dice at the main target or for everyone else? And I think what Dakotah ruled is that because damage was done to the initial target, therefore you couldn't re-roll the dice, but you still had to do the blast. You couldn't just wait before the blast because those attacks all happened simultaneously. And after explaining it, we both were happy with it. It probably wasn't going to change because I think at that point the game was pretty well decided. I wasn't going to be able to pull it through, but even if it would have decided things, it's still one of those things like the game ends, scores are submitted, go on to the next round, and then you can spend some time like working it out, maybe request to Games Workshop for some FAQ, which they didn't do for this, which is fine, I guess. But yeah, it's just a tough call because, you know, it's the nature of Kill Team. It's a dice game, so it's inherently not fair because dice can fail you. They're not perfectly balanced. But on top of that, like if you're in a dispute with someone you call a T over, there's also that added unfairness. Like maybe one of the two players is better at articulating their arguments. Or maybe they have like, I don't know, like a legal degree and they're just good at just.
They're lawyers because they exist in here. Trust me. Yeah.
Or, you know, I work in academia, so I spend a lot of time like parsing English and what words really mean. And if I'm up against someone or maybe you're just feeling like, and this has happened to me before, where you just feel kind of intimidated by your opponent because maybe they're kind of a big deal in the scene. And, you know, their authority outweighs yours. So
has this ever happened to you before?
It happened at my first tournament ever. I went up against a player who, it was over a interrupt action, and you know, you can pre-measure and everything, but I wanted to interrupt a grenade throw with a Corsair's deadly ambush, and I was waiting like, when do I interrupt? I can't do it after the dice are rolled. So as soon as he said, "Okay, I'm going to throw a grenade," I said, "All right, I'm going to charge before you do that."
YouTube personality, which we will not name.
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah, and it. You know, I was brand new to the game. This guy was well known, and the TO was like, "Well, I think he knows what he's talking about. I think he's right." And for my interpretation, I mean, I was wrong, but like again, it was my first experience. And I was like, I don't know what to do. So it's tough, but at the end of the day, like the TOs put a lot of work to organize those, and you got to defer to them because otherwise, it's a democracy, and that's not how Kill Team works. And democracies also don't always work because
that's life.
That's life, yeah.
I think that goes back to our initial point. You know, I think I was probably the TO there. And
not at that game.
Not at that game?
No, this was Adepticon. No, Strategicon.
Yeah.
Oh, that TO.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, we know.
So I think there's a few things that come out of this, right? Is to make sure that, you know, even if you have somebody who's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
So some of like the biggest deals in Kill Team right now would probably be Adrian, Ace, Alexa, Orion, Jimmy, right? These people who
Jimmy?
Oh, Kimmy Jelly. Sorry,
yes,
Kimmy Jelly. Jelly. So like probably the biggest deal on the West Coast is Chris Baki, Kimmy Jelly, right? East Coast is Orion, Janice, Travis, Adrian Bonavento, who won all of ITC. And then you have Ace in Spain. You have Kenny Roll Crit in UK, right? We have Alexa from Australia. You know, and there's tons of people all over the place that are really big deals. And like I said before, people can read the rules differently, right? So like maybe you have a rule wrong. Maybe they have a rule wrong. don't feel bad ever bringing it up to a TO, and then hopefully that TO just doesn't bend the knee to somebody who is more advantageous or might think they know a rule better, or perhaps they have an overbearing personality and really pushes something away. Something as a TO that I typically do, especially at LVO, a lot of people can probably tell you this. They would come up to me across the hall because there's 130 people there. The hall was huge. You'd have to come and find me, you know, they'd be like, "Oh, Dakotah." And they run over to me and they're like, "Hey, Dakotah, this. I was like, "Hey, let's not talk until we get back to the table."
Yeah.
Because I think it's an unfair thing for you to be able to say something or try and color a judge towards one way until you get back to the table and talk in front of the opposing player, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just unfair. You don't want a bias to form or something like that. So I think being impartial is difficult, right? And there's been some things mongering around which are interesting, and I'll have to verify more before I can actually talk about them publicly, but with TOs possibly changing matches. And that's going to be, you know, hopefully it's not true. So let BC and let computers do the work.
Yep.
That's unbiased and
As much as we can be.
as much as we can be. And obviously there are certain things that you have to do as a TO, right? When sometimes it's like, hey, like if these two players play, they might fight each other.
Right. We can't play them together for a while.
Let's not let that happen for a little bit and kind of go from there. Right. Or if somebody does something towards like a woman or a child and they have a bad history with a woman or a child, you know, you want to also protect those people. So I think those are like the acceptable instances to change a matchup. But, you know, just change it for fuck's sake.
Competitive reasons or something like that.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. So, all right. So moving on, we're going to talk about some LVO stuff, some narrative. So Rob, I don't know, we haven't had Rob on in a while, but he's the narrative king over here. You helped us write part of the narrative for Squad Games. Yeah. Specifically the disadvantages. So in how I brought it up, I contacted 5 people and I was like, hey, this is how I want the story to be. You guys figure it out. This is what I want. These mechanics, figure it out.
Yeah.
Then Saya took charge. Sheldon wrote a bunch of like, of the archaeotech, of the advantages and a few other things. And then Rob took charge on the disadvantages.
Hell yeah.
Because I told him specifically, I was like, even the disadvantages, I don't want there to be a power gap when people are playing. I want it to still be some sort of a buff, but to be a disadvantage. Can you do that? And he was like, hell yeah, I can.
Yeah.
I'm the hobby Highlander.
There you go. That's why he did it.
No, I love that idea that, because again, this is narrative. It's not about like piling on the wins, and I don't know how you did the pairings, whether it was like winners versus winners, like
there's winners versus winners.
Okay.
Yep.
So there's an inherent like setup there, but the key part, and let me pull something up real quick, is making it so that when you lose like, you know, a specific goal, there should be a penalty for that, but it shouldn't weaken you. It should just make you have to like play around it. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of the idea there. So a lot of these disadvantage cards were like a trade-off. You had to do something
for something else.
Yeah. So like my favorite mechanic for that is trying to keep it in lore theme. If you lose, I mean, obviously you're in charge of your team, but your leader is your team leader. So if your team has failed, you know, then it's the leader's fault. That's how, you know, army is supposed to work, right?
Okay.
So one of them was, and we came up with names for him as well, but like basically your team has now lost faith in your leader. So my favorite one is your leader now has the data card of basically a standard warrior, which for some teams is huge because you go from like if you're going from like the boss knob to a regular orc boy, that's pretty significant. For like intercessor, now they're just, you know, whatever, they're hitting on 3s instead of 2s. But then you get to choose someone else, basically the leader of the mutiny. And this was what that card was, is mutiny. So your team has decided they've lost faith in their leader. Your leader now has a basic stat line, and one of your other operatives is given the title for leader for this match, but then they also get, again, the boss knob's ability to give out an APL. So it's a bit of trade-off. Now, for some teams, that's actually kind of a buff, like Wormblade or Pathfinders, your leader isn't doing much because your best operatives are not them. So you can end up giving like one of your other operatives like a bonus that
they typically wouldn't have.
Typically wouldn't, yeah. And then another great one is, I forget the name of it, but basically the team now views your leader as cursed. So during deployment, you have to set up your leader first, and you can't set up anyone else within 3 inches of your leader. Basically, like, fits in with the narrative, like we've all lost faith in our leader, so let's leave him over there. There was, and then we have
that one was my favorite. By the way.
Yeah, it just throwing him out there. And they don't. I guess they could stack, but hopefully you're not losing over and over and over again. So you could end up having like, your leader is just a total weak warrior in the corner, no equipment, 3 inches away from everyone. And I don't know, hide him in a corner and see if he can survive. And this also works well with the fact you've got experience points, because now your leader's probably not leveling up because they're going to die. So it's a fun, but on the other hand, you still get other benefits. There's other ones, like, for instance, we had this idea that like maybe your team is now just feeling like scared. So they're going to hunker down. And the benefit to that is if they haven't moved yet and they're in cover, they get to retain 2 dice. But the trade-off for that is they lose an inch of movement when they leave cover. So you can still absolutely win. In fact, if you're a really good player, then you should adapt your play style and just, lean heavy on the positives and try to mitigate the losses as much. But it gives you the sense that it wasn't just like, oh, you take a couple wounds off this person. Or we really wanted to fit them into this idea that, like, if you were a squad separated from your main force, trying to accomplish a goal, and things aren't going your way, there's going to be like a change in the group dynamic. And how would that look? Like, maybe they're angry at losing, and now they're going to be more aggressive, and they're going to charge out there, and their shooting is now weaker, but in combat they get an extra bonus to their fighting. And just kind of get that idea that, like, you're in a story now. You're not in a tournament where I play one team and there's no reason why I'm now playing Into the Dark against a bunch of Chaos cultists, and then my next round I'm playing against Tau or something like that. That doesn't really fit into an actual story. But in a narrative one, you're kind of living the story. And I mean, I think we've all played games where we have, like, after the game, we have like this great event that happened. Right. Like, oh, I threw out my Phobos Saboteur and blew up himself and 4 other guys. But in a narrative, it's supposed to be the whole thing is the cool story. And, if anyone's playing this and you really want to actually write out like a story, that'd be a pretty cool, like, short story about. And with these kind of disadvantage cards, you get that added benefit.
It's very interesting design space.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I told them what I wanted and they ran with it and they crushed it. So thank you, Rob.
Yeah, because I'm completely unfamiliar with the disadvantages. So This is exciting to learn how you guys did it.
So there's two things I want to shout out. Something that's interesting that we're going to be doing is that we've been doing the first Sunday of every month. We kind of go to a game store and we just like play. It's like the time that we get to play, or at least to be there, right? And answer questions and just hang out with people in the community, as we are quite busy content creators, trying to be at least. Especially with a few things on the horizon that we're working on. But so essentially we're going to be doing this for the narrative on Sundays. And if you guys want to play along, you can join the Discord and tell us about your teams and how they kind of interact and play throughout the story, because it's only 6 rounds. So we'll let everyone know when it starts, but we're going to do the first 2 rounds 1 month, and then the next 2 rounds the second month. And then the third, and then probably give a month break so everyone can catch up. And then finally, the final 2 rounds, because it's only a 6-round narrative campaign. And you can find the rules on Lester'sWorkshop.com. You can find all the audio files that we made on our YouTube channel. So if
those are dope.
If you want to spoil them, you can listen to them. If you want to listen to them through how you should, all the links are provided. So Melty did a great job voice acting. Sai did a great job writing the script and directing him. So, and then obviously Giacomo edited all the audio and made him sound like a fucking Chad. So
Hell yeah.
he's already a Chad. Let's be honest. Let's be honest.
Shout out to Melty.
Yeah, shout out to Melty. But another one that I want to shout out is Rob has another has a narrative campaign you've made yourself that you've been playing for a while, and then you said you're creating the last game.
Yeah, so we did here in Southern California, kind of the Pasadena area. We did a couple just like small league tournaments. We were having fun with that, but near the end of the year last year, the group kind of voted, instead of doing a league where you have like Swiss pairings, we did a narrative campaign, and so it's just a 4-round narrative campaign. The Spec Op rules in the rule book, I think they're designed for like a 16 plus campaign going through like multiple books. And so you level up pretty slow, like based on the rules, it'll probably take like 2 or 3 missions before someone even gets to the first battle honor. Which is fine if you're, if any of you play D&D and you're like into a year-long campaign, that's great. But I mean, when you're balancing competitive games and narrative and tournaments, you kind of want to get through things a bit quicker. So it's sped up. So the idea is you can have some people pretty high ranked by that 4th round. And it's not quite as detailed as Dakotah's narrative campaign, but there's still like a story involved. And the missions are kind of adapted missions. Sometimes they're taken from like the Crit Ops pack, but then altered to fit more into the story. Sometimes I steal from the actual Spec Op missions they've got in the books. Yeah, and then I had the first 3 rounds done. Then it was LVO prep time, and I don't know how we're in March. So the 4th one's coming. And I'll post those probably on the Discord, the Squad Games Discord. And I also have another campaign that is posted on Tabletop Highlander, my bad WordPress website of just listing things. But I know that there's a lot of people that have played that, and a few people have posted some of their battle reports and their...
Can you repeat that word again so everyone can go check it out?
TabletopHighlander.wordpress.com.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and
Highlander's going to be a very important word in this podcast.
Yeah. Well, there's just me, because there can only be one.
Yep. Let's go.
For those of you who are unfamiliar with the 1980s movies, I think it was.
It's an old movie.
Yeah, and there was a 1990s TV show too called The Highlander, who importantly, his name is McLeod, which is a very, very strong name. So there's some campaigns with that. And I mean, I love tournament play. I love competitive. I feel like it's a lot of fun to be thrown into a tournament and have like a bunch of different teams you don't know how to play against and got to figure it out, kind of puzzle solving. But I also love when you get to do dumb things with your team that like fit the story. Like I've got my Hearthkin in a campaign, and they're not there. They're like the weirdo Hearthkins. They're not there to mine the ground. They're there to settle some grudges. And so they'll ignore the mission in order to kill bad guys. And I just love that idea. And I got my Dozer, who's not the best competitive player, but he's so much more fun. And he's got red hair, charging in and fighting things much larger than him. And it's a lot of fun. I really love the narrative.
So we also have Saya here. So we just went over a bunch of the disadvantage cards that we did for LVO and the narrative. But Saya, what was your favorite aspect of, doing the narrative, and what did you think was the most successful? And for the next campaign, what do you look forward to doing the most?
Most successful is having 3 of the most brilliant minds come together to write this. I actually think that the creative team behind it is probably one of the reasons why it was so successful, just because it was everybody kind of had a strength, and they were able to use that to their best ability. I very much enjoyed building a lot of the terrain for the event, and what was cool is I got more of a firsthand experience because Sheldon was doing something else during LVO, and Rob wasn't there. So, but being able to run it and be there with players and having them experience it the first time was so interesting, especially when it came to the story being recorded ahead of time. And it was so loud there, but having them all group up together and listen to it, I think that there's definitely something missing in narrative that we kind of found at LVO, and bringing something completely to life was a very interesting and very fun experience.
So you brought up terrain and that you really enjoyed the terrain. I definitely had a favorite terrain set. So everyone should know is that at LVO, we definitely had a lot of really fun terrain. I think anyone would say that who came and saw it. It was absolute insanity, the stuff that we did. And we spent like a month doing it. So I had a very favorite terrain, but I would love to hear Giacomo's and Rob's and Saya's opinion on what their favorite terrain set was that we brought.
Thanks. I feel so included.
I'll go first. So I hadn't seen any of the terrain until I got to LVO. And just, I guess, out of sheer luck, I happened to paint my old, like, 1990s Scout models.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. In kind of like a winter, like, tundra theme. And then before I even showed up, I think I was showing Saya, like, my model. She's like, oh, yeah, you have to see this map. And it was so cool. And it wasn't just, like, I think what's nice about terrain is, for narrative, is, like, all of the maps for the competitive are like well thought out and well balanced. But it's basically a collection of like heavy and light terrain, vantage points, and all like it needs to be like fair and fit for tournament play. But for competitive, it really looks like you're fighting over like different landscapes. And so this snow one was so cool with like, was there like a UPS truck in there or something? Or
there sure was a UPS truck.
Yeah.
At AVTT, the UPS truck was a favorite piece of terrain by many, many people. So I was like, people were like, are you really going to put that in there? I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to put that in there. This is a fan favorite right here.
Yeah, it was awesome. And yeah, my favorite for sure.
I would probably go with the one from the Dark Eldar one, the one with the little arena. I always like the arena, the different kind of stairways that you have the top vantage people will be watching inside the arena. I think that's just a cool thing to have because you get a bunch of different layers.
It's essentially a 5-inch pit in the middle of one of the boards.
You get to have this like different layers of vantages, which you don't normally play in any kind of competitive game where you just have one vantage at most. So the different angles is cool. And it makes for a unique way to play. Sometimes a little difficult because you have to move your hands around, but otherwise, I really enjoyed that terrain set.
I like them all for different reasons, but my favorite was probably the Eldar board. I thought it was very beautiful and stunning to look at, but it was interesting watching people play. I got a lot of feedback from players, and the snow one was by far, I think, a lot of people's favorites, mostly because there was a lot of snow-based models there, and and a lot of people would take turns taking pictures on the set. So I think that means that we did a successful board, but I heard a lot of praise for the temple one as well, with the giant Space Marine statue, but my favorite was definitely the Eldar. I think it's just because I poured my heart and soul into making that. And if you'd like to see how I made that, you can check out my YouTube. It's Tabletop Mayhem. But it's a literal step-by-step of how that one was done. But ultimately, they all turned out really well. They were very vastly different. And I think there was something there for everyone. So if you hated one, there's surely another you would not hate.
Yeah, so the Eldar one was a very interesting board because it had a large bridge that went over, and then there was like a chasm that you could go underneath and play underneath that was 3 inches tall. So it was a very interesting, like 2-layered board that was mostly set in the jungle. And then we had our final one, which was a jungle temple theme as well. Because essentially when I heard the rumors that there was going to be jungle terrain was going to be the next terrain that coming out, I was like, wow, I really want to make a jungle board. So
just for that moment.
So I told Saya and we came up with 2 different jungle boards, and then we made the pit of death, the arena pit, and jungle seems to be a lot of fun.
The arena pit made another debut in the After Dark. So I think that people were really excited about that because it was really a crazy terrain set. But I will tell you right now, it was interesting because of how I think people really enjoyed the aspect of that board because it was very freeing, because there was a bridge that kind of went over the top of it, but people did wild shit on that.
Saya, where can everyone go and see our narrative boards and all that good stuff?
I thought of the boards were posted on the Squad Games Instagram, which is Squad Games Entertainment, and I think some were posted on my personal Instagram, which is Tabletop Mayhem. There are some tutorials still coming on how some of it was built. That was a crazy weekend. I still feel like we are recuperating from it. But you know, if you don't see them now, they'll probably trickle up through YouTube and other areas.
That's cool.
Hell yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, so we are currently working on a show that we're filming here at the end of the month and looking to release soon, but it is going to be called Hobby Highlander. And the reason why Rob is here today is we're going to be filming some things. Some outside of the Squad Games podcast. Should be a lot of fun. So, but let's move on to the FAQs, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to start from the bottom, and then we're going to go to the top. So who wants to start with Blooded?
I'll take Blooded. So you're going to see a common theme in today's FAQs. So Blooded only has 2 items under their FAQ, and only one of them is new, and it's for the Dark Favor Tactical Ploy. And so they're adding this sentence, and I'll read it out. This ploy has no effect on shooting attacks made with weapons that have the Blast or Torrent special rules, or attacks made against each operative within a certain distance or a specified point, like the demo mine, stuff like that. And basically what this means is the Dark Favor, it's the Get Down Mr. President. If you target a specific model, Blooded have an ability, if that model is under the gaze of the gods, or I think maybe even Blooded, with a Blooded token, then you can choose the attack to be resolved to someone else. It had a weird interaction in the past where if you shot targeted that model with a blast attack, then one other model instead would get hit by the blast twice. So they kind of just got rid of that if you are shooting a blast.
Yeah, the only thing back in the day that could get rid of that was Fusillade, because you could be like, all right, I'm going to shoot this guy. And he's like, oh, well, that one hit, so I'm going to move it back to this guy. And then when you choose your next Fusillade, you can be like, okay, I'm going back to the original target. And then they can't do it again.
Yeah, that's
but not anymore.
Only reason you'd ever need.
Yeah.
Fusillade. I mean, I don't think anyone's ever shooting 2 people next to each other. It's rare.
Yeah, it's rare. Pretty rare. But yeah, so now if you shoot a blast attack, it makes sense that you can't have someone dive in front of a big explosion and the explosion hits everyone anyway. So
yeah.
Remember when the medics could kind of do some weird shit like that?
Yeah.
Where they could save somebody who died first, and then
like, okay.
And they're like, now everything happens simultaneously, and now
right.
Yeah.
And they did the fix, which it made sense.
Yeah. So that's it for Blooded.
That was it. Easy.
Colts. You got one for Colts. What nerf can we give Colts today?
Honestly, it's not even a nerf. They did kind of like what we just did with Blooded. Mm-hmm. They fixed it. You can't jump in the way.
Thank God.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It is okay. It's a nerf, but they fixed what should have just been a thing, and then
gentle nerf.
Then they added more of clarification for Sickening Aura. So the first sentence says until the end of the turning point, which most players were probably already doing, but I'm sure somebody brought it up like it doesn't say it. So then we're gonna be like annoying, and I've done it once, and that's it. And I want to say that Custodes has the same thing with their Tanglefoot grenade. I think Melty and I were talking about that once. That was a while ago. I can't remember if that's still accurate, if it ever got changed. I never looked into it.
It's Compendium, so it definitely didn't get changed.
Oh, shoot.
They no love for that. But yeah, that was probably the same kind of person that would be like, I can shoot a Felgor with the same single shooting attack to kill Frenzied. Those people that are like hyper rules is written.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then there's also rules as intended. Sometimes GW a lot of times does mess up a rule every now and then, and they have to come back 3 or 4 months later and fix it. We'll get into a couple of those. First things first, for the core rules, because that's the next one up in the how these are sorted on the GW website from the bottom up. It is for close quarter combat rules. It's for deploying models. It's been changed once again. So whenever the next models, so it's mainly focuses on commandos and higher tech. When you're able to forward deploy model, instead they have to be deployed in your deployment zone and then move forward, and then they can open a door or whatever. But the thing is, the most important change in this is they can no longer be set on engage, because how it was written before, commandos could sneaky get somebody with dynamite on engage, move them forward, open a door, first turn, move up again and throw it, or do something crazy, right? So they changed it so you can only put a model on conceal, and it cannot be changed with infiltration. Obviously, they didn't like that. They also changed it for Wormblade. Wormblade can have 2 models that can go up and open doors. I was speaking to Anthony at our tournament recently, and he said that he feels, while some people may feel that this is a buff, he thinks that it's more of a nerf, because he said that it just makes you score more points faster, and it neuters their offensive capability because they can no longer have like a mining laser, be on engage, and go up and open a door. And I would say that, scoring more points is always better. So I think that it's still probably maybe like a sideways buff, right? Maybe it just makes you want to play the game slightly differently. But I mean, he is probably the best Wormblade player in the US. So, I'll have to take him for his word. So we'll move on to other questions that were updated in the FAQ. I really wish they would just change it to a different color than doing a little tiny asterisk
right, trying to
before
find
something,
Yeah.
because it's a little bit of a pain in the ass. So the next one is if a rule is treats an operative as being injured, regardless of any other rules that say that they cannot be, like rust animations, does it still work? So yes, if a rule says that they're treated as injured, then they are injured, right?
Easy.
So it's pretty simple. And they cannot be modified less than 2. So the next one from Core is if a tactical ploy causes mortal wounds to be inflicted on enemy operatives from friendly operatives, some Gellerpox stuff or Frenzied Demise from Chaos Cults, does that friendly operative count as doing so for the purposes of TAC ops such as Rampant Nightmare and Executioner? Yes. This one seems kind of obvious to me, but obviously there must have been... Maybe the rules are written differently, but I mean, the way that they wrote it here makes it seem like it was pretty obvious, but perhaps it's because they're providing clarification.
As most FAQs are.
Yeah. So the next one for core rules is if both players have rules that happen at the same time before the battle happens and doesn't specify who resolves first, who should. The answer is defender resolves all of theirs, then the attacker. In multiplayer, players resolve all of theirs in player order. That's weird.
So like for three players, you have,
1, 2.
Yeah.
So one person is not the attacker or the defender. They're the in-between.
That seems different because usually it happens with initiative.
Well, this is before the game, so no one has initiative yet.
Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Highlander Rob.
Yeah.
Now there's 2 more. We have when setting up barricades, which rule takes precedence for the ones? So for close quarters for barricades, how is it set up? Is it crit ops or is it close quarter combat? Crit ops, it's the close quarters, and that includes your fortify. So even your fortify doesn't have to be within 6 inches. All it has to be is within, part of it has to be within your territory for barricade placements.
It's very nice to get a lot of forward movement and be safe.
Yeah. And I'm not going to lie. I used to, when I would take fortify, I would place it within 6 because I thought crit ops took precedence.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm glad that that's, some people
Clarified.
Clarified. I'm glad some people said that this was, obvious, but it wasn't obvious to me.
There you go. Clarification. That's all the FAQ is. It should just be called clarified.
Yeah. Seriously.
Instead of FAQ. Yeah. I like it. I like it. So the last one is when making a guard attack with a weapon that has the torrent special rule, can I make subsequent shooting attacks too as per the torrent special rule? And obviously the answer is yes. Whether it's Overwatch or Point Blank. So
Piece of cake.
yeah, piece of cake. Moving on to the next one.
We got Felgor. Felgor, pretty easy. This is mostly just questions. So we have when the Vandal performs its sweeping blow, do you roll D3 once for all operatives or separate? Separate. As it says in its ability, each operative visible to and within 2 of this operative suffers D3 plus 1 mortal wounds. So each operative is suffering the hit, which means you're rolling each separate instance. This is just, again, clarification, just to make sure you understand that everyone is getting hit D3 plus 1. So you roll separately for them. Pretty simple. Not too bad. Then we have when you get a frenzy token as a result of the Blades of Cain Mandy blasters, does the fight action end? Yes, because the Mandy Blasters happen at the start of the fight phase, and the Felgors say when you would be incapacitated during the fight phase, you get frenzied, and then the fight would end, right?
Yeah, well, this is an indirect nerf because this was like a contentious, like, does it happen before the fight phase? Because it's kind of a little unclear.
Gotcha.
And I think that it's an indirect nerf to Blades of Cain in the
With the Mandy
matchup.
Blasters,
They already struggle into that matchup.
Yeah.
Who do you guys think Blades of Cain struggle into the most? I had an interesting conversation with Chris Baki last night. He told me one that he thought was like super bad, and I agree.
I would say Felgor.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean,
the answer is Intercession. Because
Really?
they can't kill them before like all their models can't kill an Intercession model before Intercession can kill them, whether it's shooting or auto attack or melee.
Dang, Blades of Cain has to become good now so Intercession can rise again. And then you have the final part for Felgor. This one was one I actually didn't really think about ever because it never came up, but I'm glad it is. If a mortal wound or if mortal wounds are inflicted on a Felgor Ravager operative with a frenzy token in the shooting attack, does that qualify as inflicting critical damage to incapacitate it? No, because critical damage is not... mortal wounds aren't critical damage. Mortal wounds just happen as a result of a critical hit or something.
Correct. It's very magic-based terms. It happens on the stack, right?
Exactly, on the stack. And that's it. So just clarified, they're pretty easy.
Are there any weapons that like shoot like 3-0 mortal wounds 4 or something like that?
I would only imagine Splash, because Splash does mortal wounds, right?
Oh yeah, Splash.
I think there's probably something in Dark Eldar. I think maybe I'm just getting confused with the old liquefier guns.
Do they take mortal... Well, no, it'd be as a result of an attack. Maybe. I can only think of Splash.
Yeah, I can only think of Splash.
Splash makes sense. All right, speaking of Dark Eldar, though, we have one for the Hand of the Archon. And so this is about the Disciple of Yulindra with her wonderful Torment Grenade. Question is, if a Disciple of Yulindra gains any pain tokens in the initiative phase as a result of any enemy operatives being incapacitated from the Torment Grenade action's poison, can I spend them on Vitalized Surge in the same phase? So as some background there, you gain a pain token when an enemy operative is incapacitated, and you can immediately spend that to perform a free dash. So there could be a scenario where the Disciple has thrown the grenade and there's a few operatives that are almost dead, and in the initiative phase, they take 2 mortal wounds. So theoretically, she could get several pain tokens, but the answer here is yes, you can use Vitalized Surge, but you cannot use Vitalized Surge more than once in that phase, which is good because you could have some weird situation where she dashes like 3 times, but you can still do the dash, and then you would have those other pain tokens saved for later.
Moving on to higher tech, pretty simple. Just one change. It goes back to Get Down, Mr. President. So Get Down, Mr. President. I mean, the way it's worded in this one is a little bit weird just because they add a sentence onto the end. But in the end, it is just the same. You can't, if you get cortical subjugations, just like, hey, this dude jumps in front of a guy. But it's, again, specifying that it doesn't have anything with blast or torrent. As they are happening simultaneously. So that's pretty much it for higher tech. What's up next, fellas?
Oh, we got Inquisition.
Yeah, this is for our boy Alex.
Yeah. So we've got 2 things on here. We have for the Hexercise ability, you change to read when an enemy operative is visible to and within 6 of this operative, your opponent cannot reroll their attacks or defense dice for it. And I believe they just add the visible part. Check in on that. And then, or just clarified it so it makes more sense. And then they have a question here. If a Hexorcist, obviously this one's been causing some trouble for people, operative performs the Chasten action, and I select an action that has an ongoing effect or its effect have yet to be resolved. Like an example is a marker has been placed or Phobos strike team marksman operative is tracking target. What happens? So it'd be markers are not removed. So like an example of this is like if you had the marksman mine layer drop a mine, that does not get affected because the marker is still there. The effects are paused until the end of the enemy's next activation, and then they resume if relevant. So if you have a marksman on track target and the Hexorcist use Chasten to eliminate that from their abilities, then it is paused and it would resume their next activation. But in this case, it would have already passed over. So, so you can do something. You can chase an action that has taken place but not been resolved. But you wouldn't remove a marker. The marker's still like a token or something like that.
Right, it would still stay on the board.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it would make sense because you're not getting rid of that. You're just not letting it resolve yet.
Yeah, I think that probably come into play with the Legionary Grizzly Mark.
Yeah, probably right. Like the Grizzly.
It's still there. So, and that happens even if that guy's dead. The Grizzly Mark is still.
The token stays on there. So,
yep.
No, it makes sense. Pretty easy to understand. Next, moving on to commandos. This is going to be very quick. And this is one I never thought I'd also see, but I guess I could see why it could be a problem. So the Commando Grot cannot use his grappling hook to, he still can, but he cannot operate a hatch while he's doing his long move. So if there's an open door or something, he sees that other end he wants to go through. As he's doing, because you can open hatches while you're moving, he can close it. He can't now. That's just making sure you can't do that. It's easy to understand, which would make sense because that's really strong. You go there and I'm closing the door, so now it's on the way out. I'm safe.
Yeah, or it could also work if you were cutting across like a
that
long
too,
wall and like you're opening it for
jump.
someone else as you're going through. Which I mean, this makes sense. He's grappling through. He doesn't have time to open a door. Yeah, and I think on the Discord, a few people had suggested other like really weird mechanics of making this like abuse this rule before it's put in there. Like technically, since you're within an inch of the terrain, if you opened it during it, you could end up being like an inch away on the other side. And that's just weird.
So here's another one for novitiates. We have Defenders of the Faith strategic ploy has been changed just a little bit. They said add the following sentence. Each operative that does so cannot perform more than one act of faith during that action. So what you guys should know, Defenders of the Faith is essentially a novitiate within 2 of the center of each objective. So just basically on an objective, can perform a free fight or shoot action. It doesn't have to be the same for any of them, but they can only do Faithful Blessing and something else, or just something else. So Faithful Blessing is just re-rolling attack dice or defense dice. So it's an indirect nerf. We have 2 other questions in here. So question number 1 that they clarify is a novitiate condemnor, which I hate the novitiates' names.
The naming convention is such a pain.
I have no idea what the fuck is what.
They should make it all Latin, make it even better.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the condemnor is like the one with the...
That's not the Dreadnought, the Contemptor?
Nice. I'm pretty sure that's the one with, the sniper rifle, which is just a bow.
Crossbow.
That should be a sniper rifle.
Yep.
Is the Condemnor operative's null rod ability a modifier to the APL characteristic? The answer is no. Okay. That's easy.
Yep.
There's 2 other ones. If I use the Blinding Aura Act of Faith, which is the one where you're like, hey, you can't shoot me, you have to shoot someone else. While an enemy operative is performing an Overwatch action, and they cannot select another valid target, what happens? This came up at LVO, so I'm glad it popped up. That Overwatch action ends. Activation alternates back to you, and that operative can still Overwatch later in their turning point.
That makes sense.
It does make sense, and that is how we rolled it at LVO, so I'm glad that happened.
Force them to burn some more faith points.
Yep. You can do it over and over and over, essentially. And then if they want to keep burning faith points, then
that's on them.
So be it.
Yeah.
The last one we have for novitiates, question-wise, is when using the novitiate superior's operative's lead by example ability, what is the specific time the ready friendly operative must be selected? At any point during the novitiate's superior's operative's activation. For example, if it performs a mission action, then moves, you could select a ready friendly operatives from its new location. So that seems pretty relatively simple. So
pretty easy.
At any time during its activation, no matter where she is on the battlefield. What's up next, fellas?
Pathfinders. It's easy. Get done, Mr. President was changed. Save your protocols.
I was really, really hoping you were going to say
And -2 operatives.
Oh, -2 is -3 here.
But stacked. It's the 2 on top of the 3.
Gotcha.
You can only take a drone. That's it.
And now you're only going to take you're probably going to take the recon drone every time.
Yeah.
Realistically. But yeah, so they get down Mr. President, easy fix. Honestly, it's fine. I can live with that.
And then our last one is for the Void Dancer troop. And actually, I think, Dakotah, you guys talked about this on a podcast like a while ago, because it was like the hot Discord one. So the question is, when using the Curtain Falls tactical ploy, if an enemy operative is incapacitated, can the friendly operative still fall back? So that ploy allows you to do a strike and then fall back. And the answer is no, unless the enemy operative wouldn't be removed from the kill zone for any reason after being incapacitated, like in Death Atonement or a frenzied operative, something like that. So basically, you can't fall back from nothing. So if you charged in, killed them, you can't then continue to keep moving with a fallback or something like that weird.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. That is how we ruled it at LVO, specifically because Blades of Cain just came out. And it literally says in the Howling Banshee thing that they're allowed to do that. And it doesn't after a death. And it doesn't say that in the
Void Dancer.
The Void Dancer one. And, I think Worlds even ruled it that they could do that, right? But obviously Games Workshop has thought about all the wrong misdoings they have ever done, and they went with the right ruling.
Not quite far enough for Void Dancers yet, though.
No, not yet.
They're atoning for their sins.
They are atoning for their sins. Of course, we got other things that were clarified wrong as well. Did you talk about the FAQ from Felgor
Yes.
that has the hammer that
Yes, the Vandal.
Okay,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
making sure. I was looking at other rules.
We
that
had
you were
another
talking
one
about.
that no one's going to talk about because it's really, really small.
What was that one?
Justine?
Yeah, you got it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Justine is. I was just about to say that was
Hell
labeled
yeah.
here, but it's not up. It doesn't say it's been updated, but it's been updated.
But it's been
Do you want to
updated.
say it? Since my Justine Timberlake fan.
Yeah, you have security and seek and destroy as your archetypes now. Hey! And the bolter is
Yeah.
officially 5.
And what is it called, Giacomo? It's deemed by Giacomo.
Well,
This
it's
name.
deemed by Alex. Alex
Oh.
coined
Yeah.
the name.
Alex Popov.
Alex Popov, it is the Mitsubishi Heavy Bolter.
Yes,
Yeah. So now I guess like the Chevrolet bolter gets an upgrade, or he's still sticking with Mitsubishi.
Mitsubishi. The
Yeah.
Chevrolet has been overruled.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
got to be manufactured in Japan. So
Yep.
you could pick like Nissan. I think Nissan's Japanese, right?
And yeah, there's a bunch. Toyota, Honda.
You know, most car manufacturers out here in the United States that most people are driving.
Yeah.
Now it's there's also Blades of Cain on here, but I don't know what's been updated for Blades of Cain, as there's no updated date on it. So we're not going to go over it. If there is anything changed,
No, there is. I remember that. Yeah. That's
Okay,
the
go for
weird
it.
one. Because everything on here is new because they didn't have one from
Oh.
before.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first one, Dire Avenger aspect technique, Death of 1,000 Blades. They're changing that to use this aspect technique when a friendly Dire Avenger operative is performing the shoot action after it makes a shooting attack using a shuriken catapult or twin shuriken catapult. Make another shooting attack with that operative using the same weapon against another valid target. So I think there were some clarification issues with this, whether you could do like a double shoot, because is it another shoot attack or is it a shooting action? And then also kind of getting rid of the possibility of like throwing a grenade with there or something else. So yeah, just clarifying. I think it was pretty straightforward, but someone out there trying to mess with it. And then there are a few questions as well. When using the strike and fade striking scorpion aspect technique, does it happen during the fight action or after? For example, if my opponent wants to interrupt to make a guard attack, could they do that before the strike and phase is resolved? So it happens during the fight action. So in this example, resolve strike and fade first. So it would have to still be a valid target for a guard attack.
amazing.
Wow.
So a little
Get
buff there.
Fucked.
When using the Woe Howling Banshee aspect technique, can the operative do any other actions between the first charge action, incapacitating an enemy operative in combat, and then the free charge action? For example, could it charge, mission action, fight, free charge, or charge, fight, shoot, and free charge? The answer is no, because that's crazy. And why would-
That's great.
And then still with the Woe Howling Banshee aspect technique, if the operative's movement characteristics can be modified after the first charge action, e.g. it becomes injured, can it still use a full remaining increments of movement from the first charge? And that's yes. So for those of you that don't know, it's basically you can charge, and if you had any movement left over after you've incapacitated an operative, you can keep going.
So this is interesting because it precedents other rules that they've done before, or at least other rules that we've had to make rulings on in the past. So let's say that somebody walks over a Meltamine, is charging through a Meltamine. Let's say the most likely candidate to live is probably the Justian captain. Okay. So he runs through a mine. Let's say he still lives. And then people are like, does he get minus movement? And the answer is no, because he's still in that activation.
Yeah.
He's still using that APL. When he then fights on the next activation or shoots or whatever, then he would have the minus wound characteristics, but they've ruled on stuff like this before.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
This one's a bit trickier because there's something happens in between. So I could see why that would be the case. You've got your continued charge movement. You've been injured. You should have 2 inches less. But they say that because it was thematically, it makes sense. They're charging through, fighting someone and continuing along. So it's still narratively, it's 1 charge. And then finally, and this is really helpful. If a Felgor Ravager operative gains a frenzy token, I missed one, but we'll do this one first. Gains a frenzy token as a result of Blaze of Cain operative Manda Blasters. Does the fight action end? Yes. And we saw that with the Ravagers, but it's good now that both players reading their FAQs.
Yeah, they just end and then they're frenzied, but they don't get removed.
Yeah, if you have an ability to do a second fight action, then you can finish them off.
You knock them out.
Yeah. And then the one that I missed there, when using the Reign of Tears Howling Banshee technique, when does the fight action end? And that is after the Howling Banshee operative has performed the free dash or fallback action. Therefore, if your opponent would interrupt the Howling Banshee's operative activation for a guard attack, it would be after the dash or fallback. So this kind of goes in line with the strike and fade. So yeah, couple little buffs there for Blades of Cain, couple little nerfs in there as well. Mostly just, I think most of these make sense.
Yeah.
Clarification.
So the next aspect, get it? Because we're just talking about
Boo. That was all right.
Yeah, he's an elf guy.
Yeah. He is an elf guy. That's why he did all the elves.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we're going to go over a little bit of our predictions for the next data slate. But we're going to rapid fire because we still have to film something before Rob goes.
Yes.
So let's go over. GW has always said that win percentage is their highest thing that they always change anything over. And that makes me worried about commandos. Hopefully they're still going to get a nerf, but it's going to be interesting if we see some other teams also that are probably problems also get nerfs or buffs, even if their win rate doesn't do anything, because their placement percentage and other stuff are quite important, right? And hopefully they use some of our stats that, to make sure that they're doing the right things for the game rather than just focusing on win percentage. So when we look at win percentage currently, right now, if the data slate was written today and released this week, which is probably not how it works at Games Workshop, because it's probably written in English and then has to get transferred into every other language. And
probably tested a bunch too.
Who knows how long that takes? So who knows how long ago this data slate? It should be coming up pretty soon, right? That's what we're gonna talk about. We're gonna guess. The current highest win rate percentage is Void Dancer troops with 60% win rate. They have a 60% win rate. They also have 223 games, which is relatively high. And they have 60% win rate. It's crazy. They have a 35% placement rating. So anyone who's listening, 35% placement rating is how many times do they show up to a tournament and do they place? And if they're at a tournament, they're typically going to get into the top 1 to 3 or placements category 35% of the time, which is 1 out of every 3 tournaments that they show up at. They're going to be there, right? So that means they're performing at a high level and they have a high win rate, right? Because so everyone also knows about 18 to 20% is probably the average that teams are placing. And so there's a couple teams on here that are drastically out of that range, which we'll talk about. So I'll go over the 4 teams that are in they're in the problem zone. Then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teams in the bad zone.
Oh dear.
And then there's a couple teams in between that probably still need to be touched, but we'll talk about it. So Void Dancers have a 60% win rate. Felgor Ravagers have a 57% win rate and a 46% placement rating. That's over double the average placement rating. And then next we have Novitiates at a 55% win rate and a 33% placement rating, and Cultists at a 55% win rate and a 30% placement rating. So everything is in the 30s or above. Wormblade is just below at a 54.59% placement rating, and they currently have a 36% placement rating. So that's higher than everyone on that list outside of Felgor, right? Which is possibly speaking to that they're more difficult to play, but they are placing at a lot of events because
if you're good at it, you can place high. Yeah.
Yeah. They seem to be a very, very strong faction. And if I had to be a betting man, in the next data slate, I guarantee you this is going to be one of the best performing teams, and they'll probably get a nerf. That would be my guess. So out of these teams, what do we want to see possibly? Do we want to see them nerfed? Do we want to see other teams brought up? What is your guys' guesses? So we have Void Dancers, Felgor, Novitiates, Colts.
And not Commandos.
Nope, they're not up there. They're not on the win percentage. We'll talk about them last.
Yeah. So for me, I think Void Dancers have been a problem throughout the whole game from the very beginning. And the problem is you can't take away an operative. You can't lower their wound counts. All you can really do, I think, the only solution, because they just ignore a lot of the rules. So I think what they did with Domino Field, making it 1+ CP, is I think they should make more of their ploys 1+. That way you can't just do the mirror field, whatever, getting to reroll a save, or that you just have to choose more of them, because I can't really think of how you could fix them other than, because they're a pretty simple team.
So I'll tell you their problem categories. So we have stats for them. They have the highest average score out of every team in the game. So on average, they are scoring the most amount of points. It makes sense because they have the highest win rate, but their secondaries are very average. They're on the higher end of average. But their average primaries are also the highest in the game. So they're averaging 13.1 points per game on primaries. So that's where they are excelling, I should say.
Do you think having the ability to fly all the time really stops people from kind of positioning them and not getting those primaries?
I think so, because you can't, loot. They're going to get there before you
can get there, and
they're 3 APL. So if you you could take away fly.
What if you took away fly,
made it like bound?
So they can't jump over like operatives or something, but they'd have an ability where it costs less to climb because they're acrobatics, right?
Yeah.
Something like that I think I could live with, because having just the ability to fly over everything is really strong. That's why I usually only have maybe 1-2 operatives that can do it in a team.
Yeah.
But a whole team of it with 3 APL is nuts.
They're currently in 4th place for average secondary. So I guess they're secondary.
Well, yeah, and their secondaries, the Sadith, you score your Sadith, you're going to do it anyway.
Yeah. It's play and get points.
Yeah. So I think, if you took out fly and made it like bound, like you can traverse for free, or climb for 2 less, or for 2 inches less, something like that. But honestly, I think that really make them a harder team to play by making you have to choose your
just ignore less rules in the game.
Yeah,
right.
That could work.
Yeah,
easy enough.
I think I'd agree with those. I think they're a really hard team to balance. I mean, I think they should get a nerf. I obviously don't. I don't think I know a way to actually balance the team because they've received so many nerfs.
They count as an elite team because they have 3 APL each?
No, they have, I think, 8 models.
Yeah, that's the other problem. They got 8 models at 3 APL. That's huge APL.
Really strong.
It's the same as Blades of Cain.
But they don't all fly.
Yeah, they don't all fly.
They definitely don't fly.
They can only do it with the one thing. Yeah. Maybe it really is just a fly and the stratagems. Maybe it really is just those 2 things.
I mean, imagine if Beta Decima gets more important.
That's true. Yeah, because that's another problem. Like you just mentioned, they could just go through Beta Decima like nothing.
Void Dancers, Phobos, and Pathfinders are just going to annihilate that meta if that becomes a thing. Well, and TOs out there, please don't.
It's fun to play. It's just broken.
Next up is Felgor. Felgor have the 57% win rate and a 46% placement rating. They're obviously a big problem.
I have a drop, but I don't think it's a good one.
Okay.
So if they get frenzied, instead they can immediately make a fight action if in combat, or if they're shot, they can try to do a move action and then do a fire action, and then they die. That's it.
I think I would like to see they can only get frenzied so many times. That's only so many per turning point. Like they can only
kind of
have
like with Necron's.
they can only have like 3 active friendly operatives.
I could see a number of them getting frenzied, but you have to decide when.
Yeah.
Okay, I could live with that too.
Yeah, like it's like a sideways nerf, and like if you don't kill 3, dudes in a turn, which is already difficult because they have 10 wounds, I have no idea. They seem like, well, they're just a pain in the ass in general. Rob, do you have anything for those bad boys?
I think to fix frenzy a little bit, they should make it so all you can do is charge and fight.
I could live with that too.
Like,
you can't make shooting actions.
Yeah,
you can't do
because
stratagems.
they're frenzied goats. Like,
Or no mission actions.
Yeah,
they can still count as one.
Right, as points.
As
one
Yeah.
still,
But they're not looting.
all they can do is charge and fight.
I like that.
Yeah, they can't move, they can't dash. Maybe let them move towards a enemy operative, but
Well, I mean, you'd just be charging.
yeah,
right?
So I think because it's dumb that like the Toxcorn can throw his grenade when he's frenzied, or the Gaunt, and like just take
That's not bad. I
just
don't
take
mind that.
every special ability.
They become
They are just
essentially
now
warrior.
a goat warrior.
Oh, goat warrior.
Yeah,
I'm
and they
down.
just run and fight.
So they
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Whenever you get frenzied, you just become a goat warrior.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you lose your abilities. You might still have your profile.
Yeah.
but, yeah. But you count as injured as well, right? When you're
Unless
frenzied?
you got the war
Unless
paint.
you have
Unless you
war
got the war paint, right?
I
Yeah.
mean, the nerf going around the internet is nerf warpaint, but as Jimmy Kelly said, he doesn't use warpaint.
Right,
Yeah.
you
all the
might
time.
not ever touch it now and just do other stuff.
Yeah, and he still got 4th.
So
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
He
Yeah.
used it a couple times. So moving on to novitiates, I have a specific nerf. I said it a couple times on the pod. It is to take the Act of Faith's ability where they can just turn a normal save into a crit and just get rid of it. I don't want to see normal saves ever become crit saves. And I think that's,
Yeah.
I think I don't think that you should be able to modify a normal save into a crit save. It's that simple.
I think the other side, my least favorite part about Kill Team is all of the dice manipulation, because it really can. So I think just getting less faith points, so you have to choose your, like now it'd be like, oh, am I going to save this person from getting shot, or am I going to try to change my dice in a shooting attack? Make them choose more. I think that's kind of the solution.
I agree with that too. That could be
I
another
could
good
just
one.
live with the limited number of it.
Yeah.
Though then you'd have to argue, would that happen with Castrican? But they're not really a problem, so
Not yet.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
They lack combat. Close combat is what kills them.
Yeah,
They don't have extra
Castrican
hits.
can only do the dice manipulation. They can't do their elite points. So like, oh, you can't shoot this guy, or I'm healing myself.
That's true. They're only increasing their number, and they don't do it for their saves either. Good point.
Caster
Good point.
can really lose to the top 5 teams really bad. They lose to Wormblade, they lose to Colts, they lose to Novitiates, they lose to Felgor, they lose to Void Dancers. They also lose to Commandos, right? So like I think that when we see them fall, we may see Casterkin just rise because they're so reliable.
Yeah.
And the better people get at them, the better they'll be. So finally, in the problem category that we see is Chaos Colts. What would you guys like to see done to them?
Yeah, I have no idea.
-2 operatives, get fucked. That's simple.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
15 operatives is a problem. Minus an operative, do something to the team. The
Yeah.
team is a problem.
I think maybe getting rid of, you got your 5 non-cults, maybe make it so you can choose 3 of the 5.
Okay.
Because like I spend so much time thinking about like, how am I going to stop the mutations? Like, and then that's fine. I've now dealing with all the mutants. I've dealt with the torments, and these got 5 guys running around doing stuff, killing people.
Maybe 4 guys and then one devotee, or just 4 guys too. That could be, and then that brings them down to 14, just like Vetguard.
Yep.
So we'll move on to the. Did you have 1G? No.
Literally nothing.
Yeah, fuck them.
There's a lot.
So in last place with a 36% win rate currently, we have Strike Force Justian. Giacomo, how would you buff them? What do they need?
I wouldn't. I think they're going to be gone in the future.
You think they're just going to go
They're just
away?
going to go away or get eaten into something. They, I like the team. Love playing them. It's fun, cool thing to collect. But that's it. They're collectors stuff, and they sold them to you because they have these cards that you can play with. So it was a reason to buy them. That's it.
See, I'll tell you why you're wrong.
All right, lay it on me.
So I'll tell you why you're wrong is because they finally got something in an FAQ. They didn't ignore them, Senpai. You know what they
You know how
have
long
ignored?
they've been ignored, though?
Since October. Do you know why they're not gonna? Why I think they're gonna stay and Compendium's gonna go? Compendium got nerfed with the grenades, and Compendium has never seen anything else. I think
Well, yeah,
Companion will leave.
we expect Companion to disappear.
Yeah.
But I expect Justinian to kind of go too. Because are they remaking those boxes? Not to my knowledge, right?
No.
So you just got to build them yourself, which you can do. But generally, GW doesn't get rid of a model line unless they're also going to get rid of whatever it had before.
Yeah.
So
I think my buff would just give them chapter tactics.
no, that'd make them incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that might
That'd
be
make
too
them incredible.
strong.
Yeah, that's so good.
Hell yeah.
That's why I still think Intercession is just a little stronger because they have chapter tactics.
Yeah.
That's it. I would just say the team goes. I wouldn't be sad. Well, a little bit, but I wouldn't be competitively sad. They're not really like, damn, they're dominating here.
I think the buff for Justinian is play intercessors.
Damn, that's a
Just,
good one.
like, I want my team to be better. I'm going to use Space Marines. I'll just use intercessors.
Yeah, we'll have to see if they actually get a buff. And if they don't, then I'm going to be on G's side. The next up is Farstalker Kinban with a 40%. Now, the interesting statistic about them is they actually have a relatively high amount of points that they score on average. But I think that's what's happening with them is they're scoring less primaries. They're scoring a lot of secondaries. Their secondaries are easy to score, but the reason why they're scoring less primaries in a game is because they jump out to a big lead and they're so squishy they just die. I'm thinking that they all get +1 wound and then see how the team.
Was that put them at 9 wounds on average?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't like that because now they're tougher than elves and Votan.
No, they're space birds.
But I think that's the
But
only
birds
thing you
are
can do.
pretty easy to
Hollow legs.
yeah.
Give them all
exactly.
stems. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think maybe more meat, like easier healing mechanic, kind of makes up.
Maybe
for
they all start off with 1 meat. So, well, the problem is like when they die, they usually just straight die. So I don't know if meat would necessarily fix their issue. Maybe in a very few circumstances, but a 40% win rate is 5 full percentage points below.
Yeah.
And currently the highest win rate team is 5 full percentage points above. And then you have Felgor just 2 points above the highest what they want, right? Like for these guys are like Felgor times 2 worse.
Yeah,
Because if they're Felgor plus 2 point something, they have a 17% percentage differential between Felgor and these guys. Like that's fucking massive.
yeah. Maybe another operative. I mean,
Yeah.
When
Maybe
in
another
doubt,
warrior.
add an operative or add a wound.
because anything else,
These are a smooth brain takes, we're just,
maybe you add an operative, but it has to be a dog.
Another dog.
Oh, dude, just
Yeah.
give me more dogs. I'm down
Man,
with
3
it.
dogs. Dogs are strong,
Give
man.
me 4 dogs.
How many operatives would that be? 11, 12?
I have no fucking idea.
Yeah, with
I play
8 wounds, 5 up saves, I think more operatives is fine.
That's probably fine, yeah.
Yeah.
I can see them getting, because what do they have now?
11.
11?
So Rob, the next team on the list, you helped participate in bringing their win rate down. I believed in you at LVO, but I will say this: they have 130 total games, which is 8 less games than Farstalker Kinban. So your 9 games didn't. It gave a little bit of.
There were a couple wins
it.
in there too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple wins, but it wasn't like just you, right?
Yeah.
So they have a 40.5% win rate currently, and they only have a 10% placement rating compared to Farstalkers who have a 21%, right? Which is on average, it's average.
Yeah.
So to me, Farstalker, there's just like really bad players, and then there's like 2 good dudes on planet Earth.
Yeah.
Scouts, they have half of the percentage placings they should, and they have a 40% win rate.
Yeah.
How do you fix them, Rob? You've played them.
So I think, I'm getting better and better. So I think part of this is people are new to the game and new to playing them, and we're still figuring it out. Their 3 problems are the big thing. Their forward scouting options are all gone by the middle of Turning Point 1, basically.
Okay.
So like everyone else's like faction ability is like a game long thing. So I don't know how they could do this, but like maybe Turning Point 3, you can throw another booby trap out there or take another APL away from someone. Having something where they're like their forward scouting applies to more than just pregame.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which would be complicated. I've heard a lot of people saying that you should add another body, and then you have 10 models with 10 wounds, which what team would possibly be fair with 10 models and 10 wounds? Orcs.
Definitely
Felgor. Yeah, so that I don't think that'd be fair. The other problem is their action economy. They giving the leader the ability to give out the +1 APL during the strategic phase and then also during the game, and removing the line of sight from that because it completely kills them on Into the Dark. I mean, Casterkin comms can do 2 APL with no visibility. The scouts all have comms on their heads anyway, so it should be the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, they're advanced space warriors. They should have little like headsets built in, right?
Or just yell louder
to their brains. Yeah.
So I think the giving out an extra APL and ignoring the line of sight ability, that would help. And then I think it would be really fun if you could do the scouting options, something else like maybe during the middle of the game, you can do another extra scouting option like that.
Like, what if you picked all of your scouting options at the beginning of the game, but the first turn they're deployed, and then the third turn, the other ones that you didn't select are deployed?
Yeah.
So your opponent already knows what you're going to take, but they don't know when you're going to do them.
Yeah, to be able to, be able to throw out a booby trap on someone like, okay, you're already there. Now I'm putting the trap in front of you. Basically, like getting like a Phobos mine layer or something like that.
Right. At one time, and so your opponent knows to avoid it. Or
Yeah.
Okay, I can live with that.
Yeah, those are some ideas.
So I'm going to rapid fire through a couple of the other ones. So we have Warp Coven, who we've talked about extensively on this podcast. If you want to hear any of our thoughts on Warp Coven, you can listen to our past episodes. They've not changed. I don't know if they will change. They're at a 41% win rate and a 11% placement rating. It's
Two
really
free
bad.
Zangors.
Yeah, or buff the Zangors.
Remake
wounds.
the whole team.
Yeah.
Remake.
Start from scratch.
Casterkins are next on the list with a 43% win rate. With a 10% placement rating. They are also struggling quite heavily. I'm not really sure why. The team is good. They have...
Give Forcadia an extra attack when you activate it.
Or give them hand axes from Vetguard so that for 2 EP, you know.
Well, they already can have the knife for 1.
Yeah, but the hand axe is a 3/5 weapon instead.
That's true. But then you go 3/4 and then Forcadia 4/5.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you just got the extra attack, because you only have 3 attacks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So
you
now if
need
you have
attacks.
4 attacks, you'd have 1 extra to be like, I can actually reliably kill somebody with Forcadia now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's it.
Intercession. So the next ones are literally all elites. So like there is not a single elites team that is in the
Not even Legionary?
Nope.
Wow.
So Intercession have a 43% win rate. They have a 6% placement rating. Fucking trash.
I think that's an Overwatch issue, not really the team's issue.
So, in my opinion, just revert all their nerfs, bring back durable. But I can see durable also being a problem.
Because the problem is it pigeonholes you into playing exactly one style, because it's the best style.
It is the best style. I mean,
so like, why would you not play it?
Currently, there's the things that they need, right? Who knows? The next up is Legionary. They have the second most games played this data slate with a 43% win rate and an 18% placement rating. So they're placing way better than Intercession, but they have 50 more games than them in total. But in the end, like they're just still not great.
Change Overwatch mechanic.
Yeah.
The next one is Hearthkin Salvagers. They still suck. I'll write me in the book again. They have a 44% win rate. Everyone keeps telling me they're good. I'm going to tell you right now, according to how many 170 games this data slate, they still suck. Sorry, Dwarf fans out there, but they have an 8.3% placement rating. Yeah, they are too slow. How do you fix them? I don't fucking know.
We said make grudge tokens, like give them extra movement if they're charging or moving towards the nearest thing.
But the problem is grudge tokens, Casterkin, and these guys just shit on elites so much harder. We can't make we can't make it so that they just keep shitting on these guys. They have to be able to affect these horde teams, right? And I don't know how that's gonna fix. The last one we have is the best of all the elite teams. Phobos with a 44% win rate and a 15% placement rating. So all of these teams are below the GW has to do something to all of these teams to buff them, to bring them into relevance. I guess we're just going to have to see what they're going to do, guys. I don't.
Extra runes and Overwatch.
Make a really cool Reaver, because right now scouts have a better Reaver than.
That's true. The
Phobos
lethal 3
Reavers.
is like, why doesn't that guy have a lethal
Well, he only
3?
has only 4 attacks is the difference.
That's true. That's true. But lethal 3 is still like, you need crits to block. You essentially have fake brutal, so that's rough.
I think an idea for Hearthkin is given the Hand of the Archon tactical ploy of delaying activations. And that would fit with dwarves, patience. So that way against horde teams, you can wait longer to get your missile launcher or something like that. And then it wouldn't help them against Space Marines because they're already activating them.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I think fixing Overwatch to make it so that Space Marine teams can survive when they get out activated is the key.
Yeah, I can see that. Well,
And if you fix Space Marines, then Casterkin and Hearthkin are going to go up and win rank because more people take elites, which means those guys that kill elites will go up.
Yeah, maybe it will also be a change to the way that they
well,
suffer AP.
unfortunately, Legionary have the second most amount of wins, and I mean second most amount of games played, and they still fucking are in the trenches. Yeah. So, and this is including all mirror matches. So, like that means that it should be pairing everything closer to 50%, right? But we can't parse BCP data that hard. So, I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, that's going to be it from us from the Squad Game podcast on Squad Gang.
Commandos.
Commandos. I forgot. Yeah, Commandos and Vet Guard. So Vet Guard have a 47% win rate, a 30% placement rating. So that means, again, they have a really low end and then they have a really high end. How do you fix them? Again, demo mine. Commandos have a 52% win rate, the most games in this data slate, the most popular faction by a lot. How do you fix them? There's so many different things that we can do to this team. The team is broken at the moment. And you guys want to know their placement rating? 54%.
I was going to say 50. That's ridiculous. 54%. Half the time.
4%. If they show up to a tournament, there is a 50% chance they will be placed. And now our placement ratings are top 3 or top 10%, whatever is greater. So if you have a 60-person tournament or a 50-person tournament, there'll be, we take the top 5.
Right.
Right. LVO, we had 130, so we took 13. But a 16-person tournament, we take top 3. So, things average out. But still, they are a fucking problem. I definitely think this team is going to get nerfed. And I don't want them to get nerfed to an oblivion to the point where no one wants to play them now. Well, I hope that doesn't happen. Well, the problem is that that's what they did last time. They gave them a nerf last time, and they still dominated everything, right? Like,
well, it's also people love orcs. People are still going to play these guys even if they're not good.
Yes,
that's true.
It's not like Crute. There's weird Crute lovers that still play, but most people avoid it. People are going to play Commandos. Yeah,
Commandos have been overperforming since June of last year, right? It's almost been a full year.
Yeah.
It's time to let something else shine, But here's the thing. According to Games Workshop statistics, these guys are in a good zone. So let's hope that they look at more data than
big
just
picture,
the win rate, right? Because if they don't, we're going to see Vet Guard and Commandos still show up to multiple events and still dominate a lot of things at the top tables.
Rip.
Yeah.
Is that time now?
It is about that time. Do we want to give out our final shout outs?
You want to start?
Yeah, I'll shout out Southern Discomfort, our team here in Southern California. I think they had like 6 people at the tournament yesterday.
Nice.
Or Saturday. So good job for the people who played there. I didn't get to go, but I did watch some of the games on stream. And the streaming set was awesome. So also a shout out to Squad Games Entertainment Twitch.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And my 5-year-old was super into it. He was bored whenever they weren't rolling dice. He just likes to roll the dice.
That's the best part.
And so he loved that. So yeah, those are my shout outs for that.
Appreciate you, Rob.
You can find me on Instagram at wargaming_studios. You can also find me when I'm when I'm manning the stream on our Twitch. Like Rob had already said, squadgamesentertainment.twitch, all that good stuff. And you can find us on the Discord. We're on Discord. We'll have a link in the show notes. You can join the conversation. You can give us your hot takes. You can ask us hobby advice. You can have us all sorts of stuff. We're generally on because we're online all the time.
Absolutely. I would like to give a shout out to our Patreons. We do make another podcast called Squad Games Redacted. Rob, have you been enjoying that?
Oh yeah, that's been fun. There's been weird stuff on there. I've appreciated it.
It is definitely not all Kill Team related. If you just enjoy listening to us, it is a good reason. We have 2 episodes up currently. We try to do 1 to 2 a month. So if you enjoy us and you want more of us, or if you have a long business day, you want to listen to us, go ahead, check that out. Other reasons to join our Patreon currently is that when we start making YouTube videos for an upcoming show, we're going to be posting them there early. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of other stuff there. Even $2 a month really helps out us so that we can focus more on content creation and, pulling away from the typical work week so that we can do more stuff for you. So if you guys want to help support us make more content, please go over there, subscribe to us there, and thank you very much. Appreciate you.
See ya. The Squad Games podcast is a production of Squad Games Entertainment. For more information on Squad Games, please visit our website at lestersworkshop.com/squad-games.
Another bit of trivia
Oh, yeah?
applies for today. So St. Patrick's Day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you know why St. Patrick's Day, all of the traditions happen?
Snakes?
Is that all just myth? There's no snakes in Ireland. There's also no snakes in Antarctica.
So why then?
So the big thing, St. Patrick's Day, is right in the middle of Lent. Mm-hmm. During Lent, for especially like traditional Catholics, you don't drink beer, you don't eat meat. And Irish Catholics can handle that. So they have a day in the middle of it where they drink beer and they eat meat.
Huh!
Because they couldn't go 40 days without it. Which is why corned beef is the meal, because pre-refrigeration.
I'm going to make this difficult for you.
All right.
We're going to go back to the narrative just a little bit.
Sure.
As I was saying, the meat wouldn't stay refrigerated, so the only way you can keep meat lasting for the whole 2 or 3 weeks of Lent before is to cover it in salt,
Right.
which is corned beef.
Huh.
So that's why St. Patrick's Day is a thing.
Are we still recording?
Yeah, I never stopped.
All right. So